Good morning, dear students. Dream is not that thing you see in sleep, but is that thing that doesn't let you sleep. So, dream in your life. Dream that can come into in your life. So, today we are going to discuss about the topic uterine fibroid. What is a uterine fibroid? It is the commonest benign solid tumor of the uterus in female. It is composed of smooth muscle and fibrous connective tissue. So it is named as uterine leiomyoma, myoma or fibromyomas. So it is a uterine fibroid. We can see the risk factors of uterine fibroid. Increased risk factors and reduced risk factors are there. So increased risk factors are nulliparity, obesity, BMI, hyperestrogenic state, then black woman, high fat diet, family history, then reduced risk are multiparity, menopause, combined oral contraceptive use and smoking. So these are the risk factors of uterine fibroid. Next is the etiology. So chromosomal abnormality, role of polypeptide growth factors, a positive family history of uterine fibroid, then nulliparity. These are the etiological factors of uterine fibroid. Next is a type of uterine fibroid. Uterine fibroid is classified into body and the cervical. In the body, it can be classified as interstitial or intramural, subserous or subperitoneal, submucous. So body further classified into three types. In the subserous, again it can be classified as pedungulated subserous, broad ligament or pseudo or false and wandering. And submucous is again classified into sessile or pedungulated. In cervical area, it can be anterior, posterior or central. You can see from these pictures. This is subserous fibroid. It is submucosal. This is intramural fibroid. This is pedungulated fibroid. Then intracavity fibroid. So these are the different types of fibroid. So each one we can see in detail. First is interstitial or intramural. It lies within the myometrium or interstitial or intramural. You can see this is the interstitial or intramural. It is lies within the myometrium and surrounding connective tissue gets compressed forming a pseudo capsule. You can see it's like a pseudo capsule and separating from the myometrium. So it is separated from the myometrium by the pseudo capsule and it does not produce any symptom. So interstitial or intramural means it is in the myometrium. Next is a subserous or subperitoneal. So intramural fibroid is pushed outward towards the peritoneal cavity. You can see this is a subserous fibroid. This is subserous fibroid. This subserous, it is pushed outward, okay, into the peritoneal cavity. So that is a subserous. So it's the same intramural fibroid. It is pushed outward to the subperitoneal cavity. So that is known as a subserous. The fibroids are either partially or completely covered by the peritoneal layer. Okay, that is a subserous. Next is the in subserous again classified into pedungulated subserous. So pedungulated subserous means you can see it is like a peduncle. It is attached by a peduncle. So subserous fibroid, when it is usually attached or attain a peduncle, it is known as pedungulated subserous fibroid. Next is wandering or parasitic. So this fibroid we already discussed this one in the pedungulated subserous fibroid. This subserous fibroid, when gets nourishment from the omental or mesenteric adhesions, it is known as wandering or parasite. So third is broad ligament. The intramural fibroid may be pushed out in between the layers of the fibroid ligament. You can see this is broad ligament. So pushed outward into the out in between the layers of the broad ligament, it is known as broad ligament fibroid. So third one is submucous. The intramural fibroid, when pushed towards the uterine, before we see it is pushed outward, but in submucous it is pushed toward the uterine cavity and it is lying underneath the endometrium. So you can see it is lying in the endometrium. So this is the submucous. It can be classified into sessile and pedungulated submucous fiber. This is the sessile one, and the pedungulated one, so that is it is like a polyp. So it has a connection and maybe hanging. You can see one. This is pedungulated submucous may come out through the cervix. Sometimes it is attached into the insides of the endometrium, but it is hanging towards the cervix. So it can be sometimes it can be seen outside the cervix. That is a submucous. It can be classified as sessile or pedungulated submucous fibroid. Next is the cervical. It arises from the smooth muscular tissue in the cervix. So from the cervical area it can be seen and classified depending upon the location. So that is anterior, posterior or lateral or central. So that is the cervical. Next we can see secondary changes in the fibroid. It is hyaline degeneration, atrophy, necrosis, infection, vascular changes and sacromatous changes. So each one we can see in detail. So first is degeneration. That is hyaline degeneration is the commonest. That is 65% type of degeneration affecting all sizes of fibroids except the tiny one, small one. Okay, the central part of the tumor, which is least vascular area, is a common site for the degeneration. The field becomes soft, elastic, inconstant to form field of the tumor. That is hyaline degeneration occurs. So it can be different types. That is cystic degeneration. This usually occurs following the menopause and is common in the interstitial fibroid. That is cyst formation like. Okay, it is usually after the menopause, following the menopause. And fatty degeneration is usually found at or after the menopause. Fat globules are deposited mainly in the muscle cells. Next, the calcific degeneration. That is around 10% usually involves a subserous fibroid with a small peduncle or myomas of the postmenopausal woman. There is precipitation of calcium carbonate or phosphate within the tumor. When whole of the tumor is covered into a calcified mass, it is called womb stone. So that is a calcific, so that is a calcium formation. Okay, so this is a calcium carbonate forms within the tumor. That is also known as womb stone. Next is red degeneration or carcinous degeneration. Occurs in a large fibroid mainly during second half of pregnancy and the triploid. So this is the degeneration. That is a hyaline degeneration, cystic degeneration, fatty degeneration, calcific degeneration and red degeneration. Next is the atrophy. Atrophic changes occur following the menopause due to the loss of support from the estrogen. So there is reduction in the size of the tumor after the menopause, and a similar reduction also occurs following the pregnancy enlargement. When the pregnancy enlargement, because of the hormonal changes, sometimes these fibroid become atrophic, means shrink. Then necrosis, circulatory inadequacy. So when there is a circulation is not getting adequately, may lead to central necrosis of the tumor, and this is present in submucous polyp or pedungulated subserous fiber. So this is necrosis because of the circulatory inadequacy. Next is the infection. The infections gains access to the tumor core through the thinned and sloughened area, sloughened surface epithelium of the submucous fiber. So this is usually happens following the delivery or the abortion. Next is the vascular changes, that is dilatation of the vessels or dilatation of the lymphatic channels inside the myoma may be occur. That is the vascular changes. Next is sarcomatous changes. That is, sarcomatous change may occur in less than 0.1% cases. This is usual type of leiomyosarcoma. It is sarcomatous change. Only few percentage occur like myoma or sarcomatous leiomyosarcoma. That is the secondary change. Next we can see the symptoms of fibroid uterus. Usually majority of cases are asymptomatic. Sometimes menstrual abnormal dysmenorrhea and metorrhagia will be the dysmenorrhea will be the dyspareunia, infertility, pressure symptoms. When it become a large one, there may be constipation, dysuria, retention of urine. Then recurrent pregnancy loss, that is miscarriage, preterm labor, lower abdomen pain or pelvic pain. Then abdominal enlargement. So these are the symptoms of fibroid uterus. Next are the signs. In abdominal examination, palpation, feel firm and margins are well defined except the lower pole cannot be reached. So other margin can be well defined and surface is nodules and mobility is restricted from above to down. We cannot move from above to downwards and can move from side to side. Then in percussion, swelling is dull on percussion, and per vaginal examination, when we are doing the bimanual examination, we can reveal the uterus irregularly enlarged. You can see from this picture, irregularly enlarged by swelling felt per abdomen. Then for the investigation, we can do the ultrasound and color Doppler to rule out uterine counter is enlarged, we can see, and vascularization is at the periphery of the fibroid. We can see the vessels are going through, and three-dimensional ultrasonography can be done to locate the fibroid accurately. Where the correct or exact location we can be seen by three-dimensional ultrasonography. Then saline infusion sonography, that is we can infuse a saline through the cervix to the uterus, and you can do the imaging. This ultrasonographic guidance we can do by this to detect a submucous fibroid or a polyp. Next is the MRI. It helps to differentiate adenomyomas from fibroid. Next is the hysteroscopy. So in the hysteroscopy, to detect submucous fibroid is in unexplained infertility and repeated pregnancy based, we can do the hysteroscopy and we can detect for any the cause of infertility. Then because of repeated pregnancy loss, that is miscarriage. Next is laparoscopy, to differentiate a pedungulated fibroid from ovarian tumor. Next is uterine curettage, to detect any coexisting pathology and to study the endometrial pattern. So these are the investigation to rule out the uterine fibroid and exact location and the size. Next is the management. It is according to the site and the size we are doing the management. First, in the body, if the patient is asymptomatic, we can do the medical management, that is anti-progestogens, that is done given as mifepristone to reduce the size of the fibroid. Then anti-gonadotrophin, it is danazol, gestrinone. This can be given. Can use to reduce the volume of the fibroid, that is anti-gonadotrophin. Then gonadotrophin analogs such as agonist and antagonist. In agonist, goserelin and leuprolin can be given as an agonist, and antagonist, that is cetrorelix or ganirelix, can be given as antagonists. So these are the medical managements, that's anti-prostogens, anti-gonadotrophins, gonadotrophin releasing analogs, that is agonists and antagonists. Next is antifibrinolytic, that is tranexamic acid, that is Tranostat, that is 2 to 4 gram daily to reduce the amount of, there is a blood loss, we can give the antifibrinolytics. That is tranexamic acid, you may be seen in the word, that is tranexamic acid, that is Tranostat, can be given to reduce the blood loss. Then prostaglandin synthetase inhibitors, that is used to relieve pain associated with endometriosis or degeneration of the fiber. So that is prostaglandin synthetase inhibitor. Then levonorgestrel releasing intrauterine system. This is you all know intrauterine devices, IUD, intrauterine devices, copper T, or some such names you may be heard about the contraceptives. The same thing is same like copper T. This intrauterine device is levonorgestrel releasing intrauterine system. So when we introduces this one into the uterus, it will slowly releases the levonorgestrel in every day. Okay, so that will reduce the blood loss and the uterine size. Then Minera intrauterine, this is also a hormonal releasing intrauterine device to control the menorrhagia. And combined oral contraceptives, that is also used to reduce bleeding. And selective progesterone receptor modulators also can be administered. So these are the medical management for the uterine fibroid. Next is the surgical management. First is myomectomy. For infertile women, endoscopy and laparotomy can be done. Then vaginal myomectomy. In case of submucous fibroid or polyp, we can do the vaginal myomectomy. Then laparoscopic myomectomy is the pedungulated. We already seen what is pedungulated fibroid. So pedungulated fibroid and subserous, if not more than 10 centimeter, laparoscopic myomectomy can be done. So if it is more than 10 centimeter, we can do the open surgery. Otherwise, laparoscopic myomectomy, if it is not more than 10 cm, can be done. Then hysteroscopic myomectomy can be done. The hysterectomy done even the woman is age over 40, not desiring for the further child. Then we can do the hysterectomy. Myolysis. This is a surgical procedure, that is myolysis can be done by using cryo or laser or electrocautery. We can lysis the fibroid. Next is embolotherapy. You can see from this picture, these emboles are injected to the vein, to this to the fibroid. So when these emboles are inserted and block the vessels, so there will not be no circulation to the fibroid, so which will usually shrink and will be disappear. Okay, it is embolotherapy. You can see from these pictures, the embolus are is pushed to the fibroid area through the vessels. Then this one is seen in the surgical management in the symptomatic. Asymptomatic condition, regular supervision can be. If the patient does not have any symptom, you have to do the regular supervision for the 6 months interval. If size increases, then we can do the surgery. And size stationary, if the size is not increasing, then we can do the follow-up every 6 months interval. And surgery, the size is increases more than 12 weeks. Like 12 weeks, if the size is more than 12 weeks of the fetus. If when the pregnancy, when the baby is at the 12 week size, no, that size it is saying that size is increases more than 12 weeks, and unexplained infertility and pediculated fibroid that is hanging outside and diagnosis are uncertain. All these conditions we can go for the surgery. And in and just now we seen about the body different area management. If it is in cervix, a supravaginal, we can do the myomectomy and hysterectomy. If it is in the vaginal, myomectomy and polypectomy, it is hanging outside, we can do the polypectomy. This is the management in the cervix. So all through we can see in a just a glance, that is management protocol of uterine fibroid. Body and the cervix. Body is symptomatic medical management, that is drug management. Surgical management is done as myomectomy, hysterectomy, myolysis, that is electrocautery, laser or cryo embolotherapy. Then myomectomy, that is endoscopy, and laparoscopy can be done. Laparoscopic myomectomy and hysteroscopic resection of submucous myoma can be done. Then, if the asymptomatic cases, regular supervision for 6 months interval and size is, if it is less than 12 weeks diagnosis and certain, then size increases and the symptoms appear, we can do the surgery. Size stationary and remains symptomless, then follow can be done. Asymptomatic, and if the patient's size, the uterine size is more than 12 weeks, diagnosis uncertain, unexplained infertility of abortion and pediculated fibroid, we can do the surgery. Already we explained what are the methods can be done. In the cervical, supravaginal and vaginal can be the supravaginal myomectomy and hysterectomy can be done, and vaginal myomectomy and polypectomy can be done. So that's all about the uterine fibroid. I think all of you are clearly understood about the uterine fibroid. We just till now we discussed about the uterine fibroid, its type according to the area. The investigation can be done, management according to symptomatic and asymptomatic and according to the area of location. Now it's one of the main problems the women are facing. This is a uterine fibroid. So proper treatment and management can be reduce this problem. Thank you.